Hey guys, I am here today to do my Booktube prize octafinals reviews. I probably should have filmed something before this because this is going to be a little bit of a nightmare since I haven't filmed in a long time. But I really wanted to talk about my books. I've been watching a lot of people do their reviews and like post their reviews. I've only seen one video of someone that was in the same group as me so far. I was in the nonfiction group. Oh my gosh. And let me see. I think it was group F, nonfiction group F. Let me check my handy dandy spreadsheet. Yeah, group F. So for the nonfiction side of things. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I will link all the pertinent information below. This is something that Robert from Barter Hordes, I think that's his channel, started, I believe, last year, and this year it's kind of exploded, and it is so much fun. I'm so excited. I found out about it from Doris from Aldi Books when she was visiting in August of last year. She mentioned this. I'm sure I saw it on her channel too, but I was really excited because, yes please, community reading books that I don't usually read, aka new releases. All these books I believe were published last year and in English, which is the only like downside in my opinion. I'd love for there to be like maybe a translated group next year. That would be super cool. But yeah, so I will talk about the books. I am going to rank them at the end. I'm going to talk about them like kind of in the order that I read them. I did vlog the beginning of my experience, but then I just got over vlogging and I'm lazy and I don't want to go back and look at clips of myself, so I'm just going to talk about them right now. But I will kind of talk about things the way that they progressed and in what order I read them. So the first book that I read was How We Fight for Our Lives by Saeed Jones, and I loved this book. I thought this book was absolutely amazing. 5 stars. I could not believe it. It is quite small, quite petite. I think this is the first thing that I finished in the month of February. It is a memoir by a young gay black man in the South. And like the thing that like was the most troubling is not the right word, but the thing that like kind of hit me the most was that this person is basically the exact same age as me. I think he might be like 1 year older than me or something, but he's talking about a lot of not about a lot of things, but you know, it's upsetting to hear about some of the things that happened to him, being as we're basically cohorts, but he just happens to, you know, live in a different area and be part of 2 marginalized groups. And so like I feel like that, you know, that is it's upsetting. This book hit me on so many emotional levels. I just honestly, his writing is beautiful, his story is heartbreaking, but also like not like it's just him coming of age, and it's but like some not good things happen, and there's a lot of like, I don't know what the right word is, but a lot of you know, relationship wise, it's intense. It hit so many emotional buttons for me, and I just think it was absolutely, I think it was perfect personally, and I would 100% recommend this. I think that was so good. And so then the next book that I started was Say Nothing by Patrick Radden Keefe, a true story of murder and memory in Northern Ireland. Totally different vibe, totally different book. Also amazing. Basically, when I was like probably not even that far into this, maybe like a chapter in, I was thinking in my head, how am I going to rate these books? First book is a 5 star. Second book is looking to be another 5 star. Like, I don't know what I'm going to do if I love all of the books. Spoiler alert, I did not love all of the books, so it ended up being okay. But this was just absolutely fascinating. I also, you know, didn't really know much about Northern Ireland. The extent of my knowledge is that the IRA was a group of people that, you know, murdered things. I don't know why I call people things, but murdered people. And I watched the show Dairy Girls, and I know that they go to some kind of Catholic school, and they make fun of the British guy that is with them, who's the cousin of one of the girls. And I know that the Zombie song by Cranberries had to do with the IRA and in the 90s and some bad stuff that happened. And my friend went to Northern Ireland recently, and he said that they still have like walls up between like sections of towns. So like once it hits like 9 o'clock at night or something, you can't you can't leave towns basically. You have to kind of stay put. That's all I knew. This was so good. It was well told. It had like a, compelling story because it mostly, I guess, has to do with the kidnapping and murder of this mom, Jean McConville, but that's not really what it's part of the book, but really learning about all of this. And it's such an interesting thing because, it's this group of people that are being basically colonized. Like they feel like they're being colonized by the British, and they want them out. But then there's also this group of people that that wants them to stay. So how, it's so terrible. And like it has to do with oppression, and like when you put people down, like there's only so much that people will take, and eventually they will take matters into their own hands, and they will start using violence to try to, be heard, because there's only so much that people can take. Anyways, there's a lot of parallels and a lot of places I feel like similar things have happened. Hopefully this video is working because I'm glitching all over the place. So maybe I'm going to pause this and see if this has been working. No, it looked like it was glitching. Everything is recording okay. But yeah, so I really recommend this book. I think this book is so good. I can't, it was just so good. And it just like shows how morally gray things are. I feel like I've mentioned this on my channel before, but I get really agitated when people are like, you're a good guy, you're a bad guy, that's it. It's like, yes, the people did terrible things, but again, it's not like plop, you're putting a bad person into a situation and they're wreaking havoc. Like there's a lot of history, there's a lot of intense, like there's strife, it's an amazing book. It was so good. So anyways, those were the first two books that I read, and I was like, whoo, I'm on a roll. This is going to be so great. All these books are so good. And then I picked up Midnight in Chernobyl by Adam Higginbotham. And let me just say, I DNF'd this, okay? I wasn't like at the point of DNFing yet. I was in my head. I've read 2 chapters of this book, and what I was thinking is that I'm going to finish the other books, and then I'm going to go back and try to read as much of it as I can before the end of the round. Did not do that. I'm going to read you the first paragraph of this book so I can explain to you why I hate this book. And I feel really bad, but that's what I'm going to do. Chapter 1, The Soviet Prometheus. At the slow beat of approaching rotor blades, blackbirds rose into the sky, scattering over the frozen meadows and the pearly knots of creeks and ponds lacing the Pripyat River basin. Far below, standing knee-deep in snow, his breath lingering in heavy clouds, Viktor Brukhanov, I put an extra K in there, Brukhanov awaited the arrival of the nomenclature from Moscow. I'm sorry, what? This is a nonfiction book. I cannot stand this kind of writing in nonfiction! I'm sorry. I'm so agitated. I've been having a really emotional time in life. That is, to me, unacceptable. I can't read that. I just can't read that. I know I'm being so mean. I'm sure this book is well researched. I'm sure it has so much good information. I'm upset that I can't read this book, but I physically cannot force myself to read a nonfiction book. I wouldn't even read a fiction book that was written like that, to be honest with you. I think that this is way overtold. Too many adjectives, too many adverbs. Just tell me what is happening. Like, all I need are the freaking facts. The second chapter, I'm sorry, I am ranting right now, but I'm not sorry, because this is how I feel about the book. The second chapter I was starting to kind of get into, because it's called Alpha, Beta, and Gamma, and so it starts to talk kind of about the science part of it, but he still just talks so much. He uses too many words. This is a person that has written so many things for like the New Yorker, New York Times Magazine, Wired, GQ, and Smithsonian. I don't doubt that he's a fantastic journalist. I don't doubt that he has great ideas and like is able to come up with a great thesis and give me information in a good way, but I don't think that this man has ever written a long format before. I googled it and I don't remember if I'm accurate or not, but the way this is written is like a person who has written magazine articles only, who's like, I get to write a book, let me make sure I thrive, let me make sure I say all the words. And it's just like, I don't care. I want you to tell me what happened. I cannot be bothered. So anyways, hopefully that wasn't too mean. I just feel like really passionate about how my nonfiction is written, which is that I want it to be concise and to the point, and I want my facts, and that's it. Like, the birds, like what? Okay, I'm going to stop talking about this right now. If you have read this book, please tell me below what your thoughts and opinions are on it. I feel like I've heard a couple of people. I'm also really frustrated because I'm not going to talk about the books that I'm reading for this Booktube prize anymore because people had mentioned in the comments like, oh, that's been on my TBR. Oh, I want to read that. And I can't say things like, I'm hating it, please don't buy it, because I have to keep my mouth shut because of this Booktube prize. So I'm not going to mention the books that I'm reading anymore because I don't want to make it look like I'm endorsing a book that I'm not endorsing. Endorsing is the wrong word, but I have very specific, views, and I like certain things and I don't like this. And again, I'm so sorry, Adam. I'm sure you're so smart. So many people love this. I mean, look, it made the New York Times 10 best books of 2019. Like, geez Louise. I mean, good for him. Finalist for the Andrew Carnegie Medal. That's so great. I'm so happy for him. It's just like not for me, and I'm never going to read another book that he ever writes. I'm not even going to look at it. Okay, so that happened. If you couldn't tell, that was my number 6 pick. So I was only 2 chapters into that, and I was like, I cannot deal with this. I cannot deal with this anymore. So I picked up The Heartbeat of Wounded Knee by David Truer. And oh my gosh, this was so good. So I am going to read a little bit from the back of this that is going to hopefully explain to you why I prefer this so much more with just regards to style, not necessarily topic. I feel like I would like to know about Chernobyl, but what am I supposed to do? Oh my gosh. I guess I should have thought of the fact that I wanted to tell you guys about this. Well, this is so awkward. Oh, I can pause. Hold on. Again, I'm going to talk about the book in a second, but first I just wanted to read this little blurb at the back that says, a note on sources. This book contains no composite characters or pseudonyms. All dialogue in quotation marks was recorded digitally. Reconstructed dialogue appears in italics. In the words of the inimitable Barbara Tuchman, I have tried to avoid spontaneous attribution or the he must have style of historical writing. As he watched the coastline of France disappear, Napoleon must have thought back over the long ... All conditions of weather, thoughts, or feelings, and states of public mind or private, public or private, in the following pages have documentary support. And then he continues, I have tried my best to frame opinion as opinion and fact as fact, if for no other reason than that Indian lives and Indian history have long been given the fancy treatment of poetic and loose interpretation. And then he goes on. But anyways, I feel like that's a perfect explanation of why this writing style worked for me. He is very specific, but oh my gosh, there's so much information in this book. It was so good. I was really, really enjoying this. So my only problem with this book is that there's so much information. I know very little about a lot. Like, I know very little about things. So it was a little frustrating because he was talking about different, actually, it was so cool. So the very first section, so this book is from Native America from 1890 to the present. And so the very first section is called Narrating the Apocalypse, 10,000 BCE to 1890. And within that section, he basically gives overviews of like all the different Native, like grouping's not the right word, but different places. So the Southern Great Plains, Texas and Oklahoma. So all of the indigenous people that lived in those areas during that time frame. And so each section of the United States is split up like that, which I was so cool. But I don't know anything either about the U.S. geography, so like I can't. I mean, a lot of the names for like the Pacific Northwest were familiar, and there's some other ones that are really familiar too. He talks about Mountain Meadows, which I learned about in Under the Banner of Heaven by John Krakauer. So there's a lot of information, and it was very dense, but like so good. So the first part was really heavy for me. But again, just so good, so well researched, so meticulous. And then when he gets into like the later parts, he brings in lots of stories of people that he knows or people that he's met. There's one person in particular that, really tries hard to live off the land. And so he, goes leeching and then gets pine cones and does all of these things to make money that involve like living off the land and not having to like rely on, Amazon or whatever, basically. So it's really, really, really cool because he has all of these more personal, like current day examples of different types of native people and like how they're making do and how they're trying to like be more in touch is not the right word, but really like focusing on the land. I feel like Indigenous people have a really strong connection to the land, and so that is really wonderful. And he talks about it's just so good. He talks a lot about like the casino industry, which was really interesting. And there's a lot of talk about, termination and relocation and how they would they would successfully take children from their parents to try to like teach them to, be American. Because like first it was like, oh, let's kill all of the Indigenous people. I don't know if it like, I don't want to say, I don't know if it started that way because, pox and all that stuff, but that was the main goal, was basically get rid of all of them. And then once you realize you can't really get rid of them, then the goal is to, get rid of their culture and their identity and make them Americans. It's so frustrating. Honestly, parts of this book really pissed me off because I just cannot. We're disgusting. We are disgusting. Like, I don't know how we can do these things to people. So anyways, I found this book to be super fascinating, but so dense. There was a lot of information. So, kind of, I don't want to say simultaneously, but then I did pick up The Uninhabitable Earth. I read probably like the first half of this as an audiobook, and I was really concerned that it wasn't going to like be as good in my opinion because it was an audiobook, but oof, was I wrong. This was actually, I will say I did not retain all of the information. I'm going to have to go back and reread this with a pencil or a pen or a highlighter or something because he gives so many facts, so much information. Did I mention the author is David Wallace Wells? I feel like I'm a little manic right now, and I apologize if this is stressing you guys out. But I'm feeling a lot of feelings. I think mostly talking about that Midnight in Chernobyl book really got me going. But anyways, so he talks about all of the different elements of chaos. So there's so many facts about how we're basically ruining the earth and all of this stuff, and it was so good and so upsetting. And I feel like stylistically these books are extremely similar. So I feel like they're both well researched, well written, to the point. It just depends, I guess, like on what topics interest you most. This is about life after warming, and like after global warming, because fire and floods and volcanoes and all of the stuff that we're causing. I'm sorry if you don't believe in climate science, but there's something wrong with you if you don't, but that's okay. It's not, but read this book. If you don't believe in climate science, read this book. I'm going to buy this book for literally everyone on my Christmas list this year because it is just so good. So I thought both of these were, to me, these books were on par. I gave both of these books, I think 4.5 or 4 stars. I don't really remember, but I thought both of these were fantastic. And then towards the end of the time period, I picked up Everything in Its Place by Oliver Sacks, and just so boring. I do not care for Oliver Sacks. I knew I wasn't going to like this book, and I'm really mad at myself because I bought this book, although I guess I have to think sorry, I'm getting a spam email. Classic. What was I going to say? I'm really annoyed that I bought this, but I wanted to give it its best chance, and I knew if I listened to it on audio that it wouldn't be giving it its best chance because I just like could tell, you can tell if you're going to like a book. I am a firm believer in judging books by their covers and going with your gut with regards to this. It really has almost never led me astray, just a few times. And I can just tell I'm not going to like this book by looking at the cover, by feeling it. And it's by Oliver Sacks. I have read The Man Who Mistook His Wife for a Hat. I read that maybe a year ago or 2 years ago, and I found it horribly boring. So boring. I don't know why, and I feel really bad because he's passed now, and so, but I just can't help it. I'm not saying anything about the man. I'm just talking about the book, and oof, was this a clunker. So it's split up into 3 sections. The first section is called First Loves, so it's, him discovering science and some guy named Humphrey Davy, and who cares? And then he goes into some essays about different, patients that he's encountered with different things. One of them had mania, one of them, had this or that. And then the last section, I couldn't even tell you. Who cares? That's how I feel about this book, is who cares? I would not recommend this book at all. Maybe if you're interested in things of this nature, like, brain things, neuroscience. I don't even think, the problem is that I don't even think of it as neuroscience. Like, the only thing that he mentions that's science to me is talking about how L-DOPA can create the same, that L-DOPA, kind of turns into dopamine though. When patients were getting L-DOPA, it would turn into dopamine, and then it would cause them to behave in a certain way. And I found that to be interesting, but I don't care about anecdotes about patients that you've had. I just do not care. And I really don't care about what you think about freaking moss or ferns or whatever. I don't go outside on purpose. And I don't need to read you talking about how great plants are. It's just boring. It's so boring. I feel really bad. And then he goes on this tangent about, phones and how everyone's just looking at their phones, and he sees, parents with their phones, and it's just join the club. There's so many people that complain about that all the time. It's not original. It's just boring. It feels just all, especially in the last section, all of the stories were just kind of pulled out of nowhere. Why are these together? Why are these in a section? Just because we have to have every single thing that he's written in book format? I don't think that's necessary. I didn't look up to see if these pieces were published anywhere else before they were published here, but I'm going to assume that they were, because there's really no other explanation for that to be grouped together. So anyways, those are all my thoughts on the books. I basically told them to you in order, I think, actually, now that I'm thinking about it. So my number 6 pick was this massive dud, in my opinion. Number 5 was this Oliver Sacks book. And then, see, the problem was 3 and 4, I'll be honest with you. So I did put Heartbeat of Wounded Knee at 4 and The Uninhabitable Earth at 3, only because I feel like everyone needs to read, this is important, I feel to know, but this is, I think, so critical. And I really, this was honestly, this was the hardest choice between 3 and 4. It was so difficult. But I did end up picking this one as 3 and this one as 4, but both of them were phenomenal and would 100% recommend. I've read more nonfiction this year so far than I did in all of last year. Anyways, this was my number 2 pick, and this was my number 1 pick, and it didn't even make the top 3. So the books that made it into the following round from mine were Say Nothing, The Heartbeat of Wounded Knee, and The Uninhabitable Earth, which I do actually think is perfect. I feel bad because I think that, to me, emotionally, this book worked the best, but intellectually, I guess, these 3 books, they're all on totally different subjects, but they're all extremely well written, and they all have a lot to offer, and I would recommend that you read them, even if you're not in the Booktube prize. Read these books. They're so good. Okay. Sorry, that was a wild ride, I think. Hope y'all are reading something good. If you're participating, if you've posted a review video, let me know. I want to see what everyone's thoughts are. I kind of think that the nonfiction is more interesting than the fiction. Oh, and I did want to mention that I kind of cheated because I didn't finish the Oliver Sacks before I was done, but I could tell that I wasn't going to like it, and it's just essay collections. So I don't think that I'm going to be able to get away with that in the next round because they're fiction books, so the ending definitely can like make or break a book. But with regards to an essay collection, I really wish I could rewind the fact that I read that book, to be honest with you. But you know, you do things sometimes that you regret. So I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.